President Trump in Scotland, of course, this morning, where he's opening the new golf course before returning to Washington. The president has said a number of things of note during this trip abroad, including a significant break from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the situation in Gaza and the visible signs of starvation among so many on the ground.
Mr. President, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's no starvation in Gaza. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know. I mean, based on television, I would say not particularly. Those children look very hungry.
He then later in the day, of course, said that you can't fake those pictures. That is exactly what he was seeing. Harry Enton with me now. These pictures, this story is really resonating in a way over the last several days. We're seeing it's having a real impact as well on some of the key players.
Yeah, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu, if you look at polling in the United States, he is lost in the court of public opinion. I want you to take a look here at his net favorable rating. It is the lowest on record, according to Gallup, and they have records going all the way back since the 1990s. What are we talking about here? Well, in April of 2019, before, obviously, Israel in Gaza and the latest war that's been going on for a long time, Benjamin Netanyahu was on the positive side at plus 13 points. Look at where he is today, minus 23 points. My goodness gracious. You look at those under the age of 35, his net favorable rating at this point, get this, 53 points underwater. My God. And this, of course, has everything to do with Israel's actions in Gaza, the American people at this particular point not exactly liking what they're seeing, and they believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is in large part responsible.
So to that point, how do Americans feel about Israel's actions in Gaza right now?
Yeah, so let's take a look at this. I mean, net approval of Israel's military acts in Gaza. You go back to November of 2023, it was on the positive side of the ledger, plus 5 points. I bet if you even go back a little bit further, it'd be a little bit higher, but Gallup only measured in November of 2023 at plus 5 points. Look at here where we are in July of 2025. Way down there at minus 28 points. Among those under the age of 35, get this, a negative 73-point net approval rating. This is all being led. All the negative opinions towards Israel and their acts in Gaza are being led by the younger folks in the electorate. Negative 73 points on the net approval rating. You rarely ever see numbers that low, and that is charging up this number, 28 points underwater. The net approval rating of Israel's military acts in Gaza. The American people do not like what they're seeing and increasingly dislike what they're seeing.
That is really a shift. And this is leading to a number of other feelings when it comes to Israel in general. I mean, as we look at that, and also questions about Palestinians and you know, whether to recognize the state of Palestine, that's back in the news because of Emmanuel Macron. Where do we stand on some of those questions?
Yeah, so, you know, for the longest period of time, Americans have sympathized more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. That's still the case, but it's only by plus 5. You go back to May of 2024, it was plus 17. Right after October 7th, look at this, it was plus 48. In 2017, it was plus 39 points. That is a dramatic drop. That is, what is that, a 43-point drop since the aftermath of October 7th. And again, under the age of 50, you look at those younger voters, it was plus 38 Israelis back all the way back in 2017. You look now, it is plus 19 Palestinians. There has simply put been a complete change of opinion on this topic, and it has been at least driven in large part by how Americans view the military actions of Israel in Gaza.
It was fascinating to see those numbers, Harry. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
John?
All right, new this morning, UN officials are calling the situation in Gaza a worst-case scenario of famine. Video obtained by CNN shows thousands of Palestinians scrambling onto aid trucks as those trucks arrive. Israel has eased some restrictions on food supplies, but more aid is needed as children, you can see, scrape bits of flour from the beds of those trucks. This comes as the health ministry there just said more than 60,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the war began. With us now, CNN Global Affairs analyst Brett McGurk. He's a former National Security Council coordinator for the Middle East and North Africa. Brett, great to see you this morning. So President Trump created a little bit of daylight between himself and the Israeli prime minister, where he said, the president did, that he sees real starvation in Gaza. And the Israeli prime minister flat out said there's no starvation in Gaza. So where does that split, insofar as there's a split, how does that affect the future for negotiations?
Well, John, first, I think the president's right to say that. And I think he's right to just call out exactly what's happening. But this is a shift in the U.S. policy, because if you go back the last 6 months, John, the Trump administration kind of enabled a lot of things the Israelis did that when I was working on this file, we simply did not permit. There was a 10-week siege, almost 77 days, a total blockade of Israel, of Gaza by Israel, which really led to this cataclysmic set of events. And what has happened now clearly the U.S. has put pressure on Israel to make sure that that UN-provided aid is getting back in there with localized ceasefires. That has to happen. I have to say, when every morning at 7:30, no matter what else was happening in this crisis, we had a call on the humanitarian situation and the aid situation. We had a senior coordinator at the State Department work this every single day. We had experts from USAID working this every single day. Where there was a problem or bottleneck, we would try to resolve it. Often Israel and the UN disagree. We try to come in, try to resolve it. It's hard. I'm not saying that record was perfect, but constant focus. The Trump administration got rid of that senior coordinator position. They abolished USAID, and you really just kind of lost the attention and focus on this. That's returning now. That's important. Because to your question, John, no matter what happens in the talks, the aid has to flow. That's non-negotiable. The aid has to flow. And then you try to get back to these ceasefire talks. We have to get the ceasefire in place. And it was close. Hamas hardened its demands. You got to stay at it.
I was going to ask, how difficult is it to separate starvation, food security, from other discussions about hostages in a ceasefire?
John, multiple things can be true. First, Hamas is the main obstacle to a ceasefire deal. Again, we just saw that again last week. Everybody thought we're moving towards a deal. I'm told, my understanding, the Hamas leadership in Doha was ready to accept a deal, and the guys in Gaza said no. The guys holding the hostages said, no, let's harden our positions. So Hamas is the obstacle to a deal. Second, Hamas does benefit directly in some ways and indirectly from the flow of aid. None of that matters. You have to get aid flowing, because if you don't, what happens is you play into the hands of Hamas. All attention now, and that polling that was just showed by John, it's all focus now is on Israel and not on Hamas. So this has been a real catastrophic decision, that blockade earlier this year. It was a mistake. It's being fixed. On the talks, John, you need a concerted international effort to try to get this done. And who has influence over Hamas? It's Qatar, it's Egypt, it's Turkey. I read this morning Hamas leaders are on their way to Turkey. I hope we're talking to President Erdogan. Hamas, accept this deal, get the ceasefire in place, get relief to the people of Gaza. That is the fastest way out of this. And you just got to stay at it and try to get this done every single day.
As I let you go, Brett, I just want to note, you write a column for CNN.com, which really gives a unique perspective on negotiations, utilizing your expertise in a way that really, you're one of the few people on earth who's got this insight. And you've got a new column up, The Wars Trump Promised to End Are Escalating. Why? And you introduced me to a new term, ZOPA, Zone of Possible Agreement. I look forward to talking to you about that going forward, but everyone needs to go check out what you're writing on CNN.com because it's extraordinary. Thanks, Brett.